Welcome. I know it's been a long time. Please don't come for me. I understand. It has been, I think I did my last episode, I want to say in like October, September, October. So it's been a while, girl. I know. But so much has happened, so much has changed. As you probably noticed for the YouTube viewers, I'm not sitting in that chair. I'm sitting in my oversized chair, a little bit deeper into my living room. I'm a little bit more comfortable. I have my little blanket. I have all the things because we really need to have a chat. It's been so long. Oh my God, it's been so long. So, no other way to start this off than to give you a life update, obviously. So, a couple things have changed. So, a couple things have happened since we've last sat and just kind of like connected together. Girl, I put in my 2 weeks at Target. Never thought I would be saying those words. It took a very, very, very long time to make that decision, and it took a very long time to follow through with it. So the fact that I did it and it's done and it's what it is, it is a very liberating decision because I feel like, you know how it is when you are in, like, if you've been in a toxic relationship and just kind of like once you make that decision to leave, and when you make that decision to leave, you just kind of like begin to get back to yourself. You know what I mean? And just kind of like get back to the things you enjoyed, get back into, finding yourself again. Because when you're in a situation that literally drains you, it takes all of your energy for anything. So I did not, I barely had energy to do anything. I literally just would go to work. I come home and then sit home, maybe watch a show or two, maybe cook dinner. It all depends. And that's it. I go to bed and wake up in the morning and do it all over again. I did not have the energy to put into my apartment. I didn't have the energy to put into my partner for real. Like, it just was like, it was draining, girl. It was draining. It was just like, this just can't be life. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, clearly there has to be a better environment. There has to be a better situation than what I'm in, because like there's no way that this is the end. This is it for me. And mind you, I've been with this company for 5 years. This year would have been 6 if I held out to October. It'd have been 6. And I just was like, I don't know if I can make it 6. Because like first few years, fine. It was really good. The environment was different. Leadership structure, culture, all of those things were different. And just over time, it began to just not only die, or just kind of like the energy just kind of like shifted. It changed. People left. People were backfilled, and it just kind of like created different things. And girl, where this particular store is now, it was just like, yeah, girl, it's time for me to make my exit, because it's just, I'm not getting anything out of being here anymore. It was getting to a point where I was just questioning, what do I bring to this company? What do I bring to this store? And I'm not saying that as shade. I'm asking myself, actually, like, what do I contribute? Because the recognition culture, yeah, she ain't exist. Not for leaders, really. She didn't really exist. And you would receive recognition, or at least in my case, you would receive recognition right before a coaching conversation, or a conversation where you're about to receive, feedback or whatever. And that's just, honestly, that's not good. You need to, as well as you're hearing feedback and as well as you're being coached, it should be a balance. And there just wasn't really a balance for real in that environment. So it was just kind of like, ooh, I don't know if this is really worth investing into, especially like I was on a trajectory to climb the ladder, to just, take the next step in leadership. And then I just was being told one thing, just, it was just kind of like dangling like a little piece of carrot, dangling that in my face, and then, thinking that this is going to happen, and then time comes and goes. And this has happened a few times where it was just kind of like, I don't even really care to move up. I don't really care to do anything other than what I'm doing, because I just can't put my hopes into these conversations only for there to be only for it to happen for someone else. I'm being told, oh yeah, like there's movement that's going to be happening here. There's movement that's going to be happening there. But I'm smart though. So like, I'm paying attention to the fact that whenever Target moves, it's never like on a whim. It's always strategic. So in the middle of, they typically do like their, like any other company would do, like movements, promotions, whatever, within quarter two. And quarter two is, let's see, January, February, March, April is Q1. Q2, May, June, July. So around May, between like April, May is when you'll start seeing those movements happening. But the conversations took place back in Q1. You follow me? Right. So the conversations will happen way early on, prior to, because decisions will be made, conversations will be made, interviews will be had. And then typically whomever is getting pivoted this place or that place, they're asked, hey, don't say anything until it's announced. They're really big on announcements. So I just knew those conversations weren't happening. And then, here we are in the middle of said quarter that things would have been moving forward. Nothing, girl. So I was just kind of like, maybe this just ain't it for me no more. And to be honest with you, the lack of support for like the leaders, it just kind of, it'll weigh on you. Like, I have people that I'm really, really cool with that are just feeling like down, depressed, sad. And that's really no way to feel coming into work. Like, I saw a TikTok the other day. It was this girl just crying. And I mean, sobbing. And her caption was, "No job should make you feel this way." And I was just like, honestly, you're right. No job should have that much of your energy where you're just like, you're breaking down into tears on the way to or on the way from work. Like, it should never get that bad. And if it does, then you need to reevaluate if this is worth staying or going. You know what I mean? So that's just been what's going on. That's the update. I did want to talk and share, why I've been MIA for so long. And it's really just been because of that. It's because of the lack of energy that I've had due to my working environment. And so I decided to change that. Now, what kept me there, what kept me for so long, was the pay and the benefits. Because if we really want to call a spade, not too many companies was paying like Target is paying, girl. And excuse me. And so, because not too many companies was paying like that, it was it was just kind of like difficult to leave, because I was making pretty much what like a general manager would make at a company. And I was learning that fairly quickly when looking into other roles and looking into compensation and stuff. And like, I would definitely look into the salary first, because I just don't want to waste their time, and I don't want my time to be wasted. Okay. So I'm looking into the salary, numbers look okay. And then they're like, okay, what's your asking salary? I give that to them. And they're like, oh, well, that's a little high. Okay, babe, I'm a little confused. How is that? If you're advertising this range to that range, I'm asking for something that's like in the middle. And it's around what I'm making, or maybe a little more than what I'm making currently. And so it's a lot. A lot of me staying was, my pay, our benefits. Like, we do have a really good mental health program with Target. So it was just kind of like I had a therapist, and so it was worth it to an extent, because I'm able to tell my therapist all the BS that we're dealing with, that we're going through. And not too many other places had what we have in terms of our benefits with Target. So that was another thing that just kind of like kept me hanging on. But also another thing that kind of like kept me was the fact that I've been there for so long. I've been there 5 years. So just celebrated my 5th anniversary back in October. So it's really hard for me to let go of a place that I've been a part of for so long. Like, this is all I've known. To then go to a different company, learn it from scratch, and then just build relations. Like, having to go through all of that all over again. It's almost just like when you start a new relationship. Like, it's when you've invested 5 years, 10 years, it's difficult to leave because you've invested so many years, and it's like, am I really willing? Am I ready to restart with someone completely different, starting from ground zero, and then having to relearn them, they learn me, and going through all of what you went through with the previous relationship? Like, are you willing to go through the ebbs and flows with a new human? So it's the same thing when it comes to your working environment, your work relationship. It's the same. Am I willing to go through the ebbs and flows of learning something new, being around new people, being around a different culture, being around, just a completely different environment altogether? Like, is that something that I'm ready to do? So that was kind of like why I was on the fence. It was the pay, it was the benefits, it was how long I'd been there. It had been, some of my peers that I have developed like genuine friendships with, team members that I had developed a really good rapport with. And so it was just kind of like I had created so many good relationships here that a lot of my days would be smooth because I had people that I knew were willing to work for me. Like, they were willing to get the jobs done. And so now having to learn a whole different team, learning strengths, weaknesses, all that all over again, it's just like, ooh, am I ready? But when you're sick and tired, I'm gonna take y'all to church for a second. When you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, you will then put all of those, you will put all of those like worries, all of those concerns, you'll quiet all that, because at the beginning of the day, it's really about protecting your peace. And if you're in an environment that is not peaceful for you, then is it really worth hanging on to? Yeah, benefits okay. Yeah, the pay is okay. But the real tea, when it comes down to getting paid more, I know y'all think it's so tea to make more money. But baby, let me tell you something. The more money you make, when I tell you the government is going to get their cut by any means necessary, I'm not kidding. I was getting anywhere from $700 to $900 taken out of my check for taxes. And my boyfriend, he and I looked at my paycheck stub for something. I forgot what we were looking at it for. And he saw how much came out of my check, and he's like, what? They take this much out? They take that much out? Like, I only get a couple $100 taken out of my check. Mind you, he makes less than I do. So I was just like, yeah. So believe me, I understand firsthand. Yes, I make more money, but what I bring home really doesn't reflect that. That was a big factor too. Like, okay, if I take a pay cut here, or if I decide, to stick around, like, is it worth it in terms of pay, my bills and whatever? And I had to realize I'm making more money, so they're taking more out in taxes. So if I make less, hello, and they're not taking as much, and I'm essentially bringing more home, let's go for it. I'm in a dual income home. My partner works. I will be working. So it's not necessarily like all the bills are going to fall on me alone. We share our bills together. So it's just kind of like, if he's able to make his end of rent and take care of his bills and whatever, and he makes less than I do, I'm able to make, like, if I'm making less, I'm able to still make my lifestyle worth it. And so when I came to that realization, I was just like, oh, you know what? Yeah. Hell yeah. It's time to go, boo. It's time to go, Target. And no shade, I feel that was the best decision I could have made in 2026. Because since making that decision, since putting in my 2 weeks, and like now I have 2 shifts left this week, and then I'm done. I have felt so much better. I've had so much energy. I literally cleaned our whole apartment by myself. No grunts, no complaints. Normally, if I'm doing something like that alone, I would be arguing with my partner throughout the day if I feel like I'm doing more than what he's doing. I didn't even care. I was going through organizing our closet. I cleaned both bathrooms. I cleaned out in our living room. I cleaned out in our kitchen. And it just was like, I wasn't like cleaning all day long. I just paced myself. I just did whatever I felt like doing in that moment. And then I'd take a break and watch a show or watch a movie. And then I'd finish one room, off to the next. And it just kind of like, it gave me my energy back to want to do things, to want to just kind of like, I don't even know how to explain it, girl. It just gave me so much of me back, just making the decision to leave. And I told my boyfriend literally like yesterday, it feels like I'm leaving a toxic relationship. And he laughed at me, but I was being dead ass. It feels like I'm leaving a toxic relationship and I am getting back to who I was prior to feeling depressed, prior to feeling drained, prior to not really feeling appreciated and just kind of like wondering what I brought to the table. Like I'm getting back to the fact that I am that girl, and the fact that I let a company like Target make me question whether or not I'm that girl. It was time to go at that point. To keep it a buck, it was time to go then. But you know what? It's all good. I made the decision to leave. I am leaving on good terms. I gave them a 2-week notice. And to be honest with you, I've developed such relationships with the company in general that there are people right now that are just like, hey, if you decide to come back, and hey, say if you don't want to work in the stores and you want to work at HQ and you apply at HQ, I'd write you a letter of recommendation. Hello? Someone that, I mean, just knows me, knows what I bring to the table, knows the kind of character and the human being that I am. And they're just like, yeah, I'll help you. Because, you know, there's a completely different environment in operations, which is in store, versus corporate. Let me tell you. So it just was like knowing that I have that support and I'm making the decision to leave on good terms. Like I'm not trying to leave them high and dry. But I'm gonna tell you one thing that was crazy. My boss like came up to me, and she was just kind of like, she didn't say anything the day that I came back because I put in my notice while I was on vacation still, and I was due to come back to work the following day. And so I was just like, okay, I had received an offer. I had gotten a start date. And so I was just, okay, once I got the start date, then it was, we was up. And I put in my 2-week notice. My boyfriend was like shook that I had already put it in, because he was like, when did you have time to do that? You've been here all day. And there was a way for me to do that from my phone remotely. So that gets done. I go into work. Everyone speaks to me as normal. Nothing's really like changed. My boss talks to me as normal, as if, nothing has changed. So I was just kind of like, okay. Now I knew human resources and I knew my boss had access to see my notice. So those were two people. Well, head of HR, I wasn't going to talk to head of HR and I wasn't going to talk to my boss because they knew. So there wasn't a need for me to come in and say, hey, I put in my 2-week notice. If you are aware, you see it as soon as I submit it, you see the date, like you see all the information. So almost a week goes by and my boss comes up to me. She actually came up to me last week. And so she asked me, she was like, so about this, about your 2-week notice. And I'm like, yeah, what about it? And she's like, well, when were you going to tell me? And I'm like, you knew. And she was like, yeah, but you didn't say anything. And I was like, what would you have had me say if you knew? Now, so the reason why I responded in this way is because anything that I brought up to her in conversation about this or that team member or any best practices, anything, any changes or whatever, anything that I've brought to her, her first response is, I know. And especially when it comes to like a team member putting in like a 2 week notice, and I'll share it with her and she's like, yeah, I know. So I didn't think this time would be any different. So I just was like, okay, well, it's no need for me to say anything because I'm 100% sure you're aware. Now, the people that I did share this with in person were the people that I work alongside, which are my peers. I did tell them myself because I was like, okay, I don't want you to hear this from anyone else. And I didn't want you to just find out and I'm up and gone. But I did put in my 2 weeks and my last day is this date. And I shared with them that I wanted to give them the courtesy of telling them in person because, hear me when I say this, they did not have access to see that I did put in my notice. So because they don't have access, I wanted to share it with them. It wasn't going to be something that they would just know. It would be something they would have to find out. And so if you have to find out, I'd rather you just find out for me. So I just kind of like shared it with people that the 2 people that I work alongside, and then people that I have built relationships with. I shared it with them personally. I knew it was going to get around the store, so I wasn't really like bent on who knew who didn't, because it was like, girl, if I'm only telling personally the people that I cared about, the relationships that I cared about. And that was kind of it. And it was just kind of like, so when she approached me and was just kind of like, well, you didn't say anything, or when were you going to say something? And I was just like, well, you knew. So what was there to say or talk about? And so she just kind of like shared with me when she was in a similar situation, like she informed her leader at that time, which is the resignation process is different in this day and age. And it's different because you're able to go into, most companies have what you call Workday. So you're able to go into Workday and just go into your profile literally for you're able to go in and just resign. And it'll ask you for a date. It'll ask you the reason and then submit. And that's it. It's not a matter of calling HR. It's not a matter of calling your boss. It's you literally go into Workday, put it in, put what date you want. And that's just kind of like it. And then HR sees it that you have put it in. And so then they typically would reach out to the head of that department for whomever put in the notice or whatever. And then they just kind of like, hey, just FYI, for example, they're just like, Jay put in her 2 weeks. And so I guess all that time she had been expecting or waiting for me to say something. And then head was saying like, well, I thought that, I thought we were better than that is, what she was saying to me. And I was just kind of like, I hear what you're saying. Believe me, I do hear what you're saying. However, if it's news that you already know, girl, it's news you already know. So I just didn't want to hear. I didn't want to hear, I know. And because I didn't want to hear, I know, I just was like, well, it's, ain't no need to say that. That's just me. So, just to, kind of like move on, because I wanted to talk to you guys about what kept me there. My feelings now. I've spoken a little bit about what my feelings are and that I feel more liberated. I feel like I'm leaving a toxic relationship. 100%. But also, like, I'm excited. I feel wanted by this company that so I'm leaving Target and I'm going to Caribou Coffee, which is a Minnesota based establishment. And I will be an assistant general manager for now. The plan is basically to be in this role for about 6 months and then pivot to have my own store. And so I really felt the warmth. I really felt the excitement. I've heard a lot of really, really good things about this company, and it has a really good reputation of how well it treats its people and how well it treats its employees and all of the things. So I'm just super excited to embark on this endeavor. And to honestly, I ain't gonna hold you, I am a little bit nervous about learning how to make drinks, because this is like we starting at ground zero, honey, square one. And the leaders that I'm, that are my peers or soon to be peers, they're just like, okay, listen, it is going to be a little bit intimidating. Don't let it get to you. And first week is going to be a bit rough when you're learning like normal barista expectations, and then it's going to be a huge jump from barista to shift lead and all of the things. So like don't let it stress you out. It is perfectly normal, and you should be well-rounded in about 3 weeks. Now, if you're still struggling in 3 weeks, might be a different conversation. But for the most part, your first week, you're going to be learning pretty much everything. And it's one thing that I do love, because my training general manager, and who I learned is now my general manager, she like sent me a whole like graph of everything. Like she gave me a whole template of like, what each week is going to look like, what the objectives are going to be. It also has like my shifts and whatever, but like the fact that I can see what it is that I'm going to be working on, what it is, like the trajectory of everything, like the plan. And I told her, thank you for this detailed plan for a month out, because I am very much a type A girly, and I need a plan. I need to know like what's tea, what's going on, because if I don't have that, then I'm going to feel lost in the sauce. So the fact that she was able to give me all of that and to make me feel like you got this, like I'm here with you, I'm here to help you, all of the things, it just feels so it feels so refreshing. And to see that there is like a training plan, there's something like there's a blueprint. I'm not saying that every day is going to move to the beat of this drum, but at least I know what the moves are supposed to look like. You know what I mean? So let's see. I talked to y'all about how I'm feeling now. I talked to y'all about where I'm going. So, as we're rounding up, because I'm approaching my 30-minute mark, one thing that I'm going to share. So what we're going to talk about next episode is it'll be my first week. So I'm going to give y'all the tea on what the first few days look like. And it's crazy because this company is different. So they don't necessarily, so their paydays are not on Fridays. Their paydays are on Tuesday, which girl, we love. So their week starts on Wednesday. The end of the week technically for them is Tuesday, which is kind of like how it was when I used to work for Raising Cane's. Is like that. Their payday was also Tuesday. It's a bit odd, I must say, because I'm so used to payday being on Friday, but I'm never going to complain about the pay being on an earlier day, because baby, the bills fall on any day of the week. Okay. So the fact that it's on a Tuesday, even better, which is kind of like why I'm starting when I'm starting, because it's the start of a new pay period, I would assume. So, it's exciting. So now once I have these 2 shifts, my last 2 shifts with Target, I'm going to be off for another week. And my boyfriend was just like, dang, you should have probably saved your cleaning projects for, later in this week, since you're going to be off for so many days. And I'm like, no, it still was something that needed to get done, because it's just something about being in a clean, organized apartment that just kind of like makes my brain clean and clear. And so that was going to have to happen anyways. So I just, I'll just kind of like, Sundays are going to be my reset days, because I think it's looking like I'm going to be off on Sundays and Mondays. So Sunday's going to be, looks like my reset days for the next at least 4 weeks. And then, we're just going to see what happens. When I tell y'all, I'm so excited. I'm so excited to work for this company. I'm so excited to learn something new. And I'm so excited to be in a different environment, because this is a smaller team. Girl, when you go from a team of like 50 to 60 plus to now have like 15, 20, bring it on, because I miss the days of having a smaller team, girl. But more to come next week. I wrote down here, we're going to talk about my first week and what the first few days look like, and what it's like, what my first drink was like. We're going to go over all the things. But yeah, I am going to see y'all on the next one. I'm so excited to be recording again. Like, you just have no idea. But yeah, don't forget to subscribe, hold on, how'd that shit go? Like, share, subscribe. It's been so long, I forgot my script, girl. But yeah, do all of the things, and I will see you next week, girl.